This is Gwen. She's our first child. She was born in Mary Washington Hospital and had a short stay at the Mary Washington NICU. Very normal pregnancy, nothing stood out, pretty easy. My water broke at 31 and a half weeks. I did not know at the time that that was what was happening. Just entered the third trimester, so I thought it was incontinence. But I went to the hospital just to make sure. 2 days later was my 32-week checkup, and they just did a swab just to double check and had confirmed that it had in fact broken. So I had to come back to Mary Washington Hospital, and they admitted me on the spot, and that was the start of my antepartum stay. The care was great. It was such a hard time, especially it was right at the start of COVID. So I couldn't have any visitors, I couldn't go outside, anything like that. I was on full bed rest. It was very hard being away from Andre for that long, but they really did everything they could to try to make it okay. The next morning, they moved us over to the labor and delivery room from antepartum, and we were just waiting for Gwen to arrive, and then at 7:29 p.m., she came out screaming. They had told me while I was in antepartum that as long as she came out screaming, everything would be fine. So when she did come out screaming, we were pretty relieved, but we found out later that everything was not fine. She was born with persistent pulmonary hypertension, which meant that her lungs didn't fully inflate. So even though she came out screaming, she was trying really hard to breathe, but she wasn't actually breathing.
We waited around for the doctor to come, and they came and brought us back to the NICU so that we could see Gwen, and told us like the whole situation about where we're at and where we need to go, and kind of the steps that we need to take to get there.
She was in the NICU for 17 days. In the beginning, it was very difficult. It wasn't for a few days that we were able to touch her. We weren't able to hold her until she was 5 days old, and I wasn't able to breastfeed until 6 days. But once we were able to start doing skin to skin, she did start to get better, and it was a slow progression, and then she plateaued.
Yeah.
And then about halfway through her stay, she plummeted again. At one point it got so bad, they said that if she continued on that trajectory, they were gonna have to airlift her to Children's National in DC.
The next day we came in and they pretty much said, yeah, she's looking great. She's maintaining her own body temperature. She's putting her own food down and everything. And so they said we're just going to watch her for the next 24 hours, and if she continues to do that, then you can take her home.
We did the car seat test, and then the next morning on June 8th, we called and we're like, okay, are we taking her home? And they're like, yep, she's ready to go.
Come get her. So we got in the car, we came and got her.
Yep. You know, they weren't just showing up for work. They cared so much. They cared so much about Gwen, and they cared so much about us and what we were going through. And on more than one occasion, especially on the bad days, you know, as we were leaving or as we were coming in, they would stop us and hug us and just reaffirm that everything was gonna be okay. And they really went above and beyond. We definitely did not know or expect that we would have to go to the NICU, but I know that if we were to go through this again, we would do it with so much more confidence, knowing the nurses there and knowing the hospital has what we need. She's not had any issues at all. We go outside, we go on hikes with her. She's running around, she's perfect.